say, man. I guess my moral of the day is to not stay in my own head. I was doing my jump ropes this morning. I'm in between sets. This lady I know, I be seeing in the gym, she had like a bag of sugar cookies. And she fit though, you know what I'm saying? But she just had these cookies today. And she asked me if I wanted one. I told her, I was like, nah, I had to think about it. I told her, nah. And I was telling her that, I be in my own head about like my diet and, just trying to stay on top of things. And she told me not to stay in my own head too much. Then, like, after I was done, like, and she appreciated what I said, though. And she was saying that, she was like, oh, I can definitely see why you're so conscious of your body, basically saying, like, you look so good. Like, I can never know that you were struggling with your diet. She really gave me so much praise for real. You know what I'm saying? But, you know, time progressed and I was done with my first wave of workouts. And then I was leaving the locker room. I put my jump rope up and I was talking to this man in the locker room about like dieting and energy and sleep and rest. And then as I was leaving, you know, I told him thank you. Uh, I sometimes I think a lot about that. And then this man named Gino, he said, "Don't think too much." And then that's like two random people telling me not to think so much, not to overthink, not to stay in my own head. And it's just, I guess that's just the lesson for today. Because last night I was in my own head. A lot of times I be having like imaginary conversations with people, getting irritated real time over conversations that I know that I would probably have with a certain person if I was to see him, but I ain't even see him. So it's like I'm making shit up. How I know everything? Maybe it wasn't even gonna go down like that. You feel me? But I feel like I be in my head a lot. I've always been like that. I've overthought so many things in my life. I've robbed myself of so much peace that I could have just had, you know, just based off me not being in full control of my mind. The mind, brother, the mind. But pause that real quick. I'm finna go inside and probably buy something. Back in the game. But yeah, man, just maybe God be talking to you through people. God be using people to be his voice, his mouthpiece, you dig? So, I'm just maybe I do think too much, Every day I'm just constantly working on improving my mind and my speech. Those are the biggest things I can say that I work on. That takes my mind, speech, and my body, man. Just focusing on these things. I ain't struggling with sex or corn or dirty websites. That's in the past. Like, I've been focusing on, improving the way I talk to people, the way I interpret, the way I listen, my patience, eye contact, the nuances that are just so important. Just improving my communication skills. This is just a personal video, honestly, like just about updates on my life. I've done fairly well over the years. There's people who would think that I have zero problems with communication, but I'm focusing on improving. I'm not trying to remain the same. I'm trying to become great. I'm trying to become the greatest version of myself. I'm trying to max out my life. I mean, what else is there to do? What else is there to do? Why would I remain mediocre or average when I have the ability to max out and become great? I can become better, so why don't I do better? It's really just as simple as that, But staying in my head with things is limiting a lot of peace that I had throughout my life, that I could have had throughout my life, Overthinking situations, nerves causing me to sweat, failing in the heat of battle, not understanding, not having the knowledge, not having the wisdom, being gate kept away from me, allowing the hate to get to me, believing in the hate, I've been through all these things, man. I've been through all these stages of life. And it's really just being immature, but it's immature because I was inexperienced. I didn't know that I could have simply just chose not to believe it. You know, I wasn't comfortable with being uncomfortable. I wasn't comfortable with being the odd man out. It used to really affect me. It wasn't until I got older that I started to embrace being the odd man out. I used to have anger in my heart because I felt like I wouldn't get invited to things. But those same people that wouldn't invite me to things would act like they would like me enough to even be a thought of being invited to these things, you know, being around people who treat you like, you know, y'all are friends, but then you're wondering why when they have gatherings you're not invited. I used to invite myself to things. You know, when people say don't go nowhere where you're not invited, I used to like force and invite myself places. And overall we'd have a good time, but looking back deep down, I didn't really feel that welcome. Matter of fact, I did feel welcome because people, they kind of had to welcome me because I was there. They wasn't bold enough to tell me to leave. But overall, like I wasn't in the initial plans, you know. I used to invite myself places and then people would be like, "Oh yeah, you can come. You can come." It was never I want you to be there, you know. But a lot of these situations caused me to be in my head about things. You're not really knowing who's really your friend, who's really there for you, who really cares for you, you know. This is based off my past, you know, just growing pains and just going through healing, you know. And you know, it takes a lot of accountability just to look at yourself in the mirror and understand that it's not how it has to be. But where I'm at, I'm just trying to make the best out of the situations that was given to me. You feel me? Crazy.